So let's open up the first one, which is the Turbo Power Pack here, which supposedly allows another day, adds another day of battery power. So this one is a 3490 or 3490 milliamp battery. So it actually more than doubles the battery in the phone there. So, you know, this is definitely going to suit my needs. It would suit pretty much everybody's needs. But, you know, I don't think that I will have any issues with battery power with this in my arsenal here. Box again is very similar to the other boxes that we've dealt with here. You got the red and the black, or the red and the gray colors, and some blue on there as well. Really love the ideas of these MotoMods. I think they're very cool, and it was really one of the selling points for this device for me. One of the major selling points. So right here you have some documentation, again, that'll go unread, and that's pretty much it in this mod. I got a good price on this mod here. Oh, here's some more documentation here. Turbo Power Pack. Basically just explains what you should do. So let's remove this mod off the back and see if it says anything. It didn't say anything. Let's check what we've got here in terms of power. So if we press this button here, it shows that it's not powered up in the slightest. So I will have to power it up. The phone is kind of dying as it is. We got 21% power on that, but I did want to see how this goes. So attach that there. There we go, MotoMods. Moto Turbo Power Pack. You just added extra battery and turbo power charging speed to your phone. Select your battery mode. You can always change this in MotoMod settings. Turbo, fast charging or faster charging. Maximize charging speed to your phone for a quick battery boost. Then efficiency, more battery. Maximize usage time by keeping your phone battery at 80%. I'm actually going to choose the efficiency here, and I can always change this at a later date. And there we go. Let's see what we got here. MotoMod battery low, 10%. So it actually shows in the notifications here. So let's take a tour around this mod here. So first of all, it has a texture to it, and it has these lines going from side to side on a diagonal. And it has a rubberized texture to it. So the first thing that that's going to do, it's going to increase the gripability of this. And because you're not going to be having a case on the phone per se, you're just going to be putting mods, or at least that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be putting mods on the back of the phone. The ability to grip that phone is always going to be welcome. You have a couple of pieces of branding on here. You have the Motorola branding on the back here. It's sort of raised from these side-to-side lines, these side-to-side on a diagonal lines. You also have the Turbopower branding down here that is also a little bit raised. So I do apologize for the dirt here on the mod. I'm filming this video in sections because I was not happy with the original take on this. So I have been using this for quite a while. Spoiler alert on that. But so down here we have an indicator. We have 4 lights, and we have a button here that actually shows you how much power you have on this mod. So that's always nice to have. You have 2 options to charge this. You have an option to charge the mod itself. You have a USB Type-C connector right here where you can actually use the same power connector or power cord that you use on the phone to power this up individually. You don't have to have this attached to the phone to power it up. So if you're somebody who has multiple mods, you can have them all powered up and ready to go. But if this is your only mod and you don't care to have to, power it up separately, you can power it up from the phone itself. We'll get into that more in a second. But let's just take a tour around the mod here. So again, you're dealing with a rubberized texture. You have the cutout for the camera here, and you have the branding that we discussed and the indicator light there. Now you also have, as you can see, the profile on this. You have sort of beveled edges all around it, so it makes it ergonomically compatible with your hand. And you might also notice that it's not very thick. It's very thin, actually. So everything on the outside is, that rubberized texture, and really the only interface on this mod when it's attached to the phone is that secondary port here, or this port that you can charge it up with secondarily if you charge it separately from the phone itself. Now on the underside, the part that actually interfaces with the phone, you have your pins here that, that's where the communication happens with your phone. You have all this information here, the FCC information, how much power capacity on this, 3,490 milliamps as we discussed before, and it has the name, the Turbopower pack. It also has the Moto branding here. This is a matte black plastic and it has a texture to it. Really you're not going to see this because you're going to be having, if you're majority of the time this is going to be attached to the phone. So there's not a lot going on the outside. The only other thing worth mentioning is that you have a notch at the bottom here, and that's going to enable you to get your finger under there and pop this off. So in full disclosure, like I kind of touched on earlier, the original part of filming this was when I actually unboxed it and I actually attached it to the phone. So that's one take. You can't really redo that. But I was extremely tired when I was filming that, and I wasn't as articulate as I should have been, so I really did want to redo a lot of this video. So right now we're actually months after that initial unboxing. So the benefit of that is I actually have a lot of use under my belt of this mod. And I can say that it is, of the mods I have, it is the mod of choice that I do use. And I think that it's money well spent. In fact, I would definitely recommend this mod because I'm somebody who likes to have enough battery power in my phone. Probably that's the number one thing. Other than, you want table stakes, you want a phone that is going to do everything that you need it to do. You don't want it to lag, you don't want problems with it. You want a phone that's going to be good. And nowadays, you have a lot of options for that. You don't need to buy the top of the line phone to get that. So as long as that's taken care of, the next thing on my list is battery power. And I think a lot more companies need to focus on that. But it's nice to have a phone where, number one, I have options. That's for another video, why I chose this phone as my daily driver phone. But it's nice to have a phone where you don't have to charge it every day. In fact, I find that I charge my phone every second, third, and sometimes longer. I get a lot more use depending on how much I use my phone. So maybe, at the least I will charge it every other day. At the most, I think I've gotten 4.5 days out of this. With the phone in the battery and then this MotoMod on top of that. So I can definitely recommend this MotoMod if you're like myself, where you put a premium on battery life and you don't always want to have to be worrying about losing power or not being able to get through a day with the battery power on your cell phone. Unfortunately, because I can't put a case on this phone, I did drop this once, and there's some little bit of damage to the phone there. I never drop a phone, so that's very much unlike me. But I did drop it with this mod on, and there's a little bit of a ding right there, and can't really tell too much, but up here as well. So it did survive the drop. I wouldn't recommend it. I did drop it on pavement, which fortunately nothing broke on it. But the reason I bring that up is because the magnet power between this mod and the phone, or any mod, any MotoMod and the phone, is very strong. It's a very strong bond. So I've never had it I've never been in a situation where the mod has just come off for any reason. Even when it dropped, it still was attached. You really have to make an effort to pull these two things apart. So that's a really positive thing in my opinion, because when you're just dealing with something that's magnetized on there, you don't want this thing falling off ever. So in order to do that, almost dropped it again there. In order to, get this mod off nicely, again, you do have that little notch in the bottom. You just put your fingernail in there and you can pull it off. There's a little bit of a resistance there, and you want it to be that way, but it's not too difficult. It's just right. It's sort of like the Goldilocks just right kind of situation there. So in conclusion, I would have to say I highly recommend this mod if you're somebody who values battery life like I do. It is probably the best money spent on a mod that I've seen or that I've personally experienced with this phone thus far. So the one last thing I do want to discuss about this mod is that the thickness of it is roughly the same thickness as the phone itself. So when you use the mod, you're actually just doubling the size and no more. So for me, that's, I'm not somebody who's a stickler that needs the thinnest phone out there, because that stuff doesn't fly with me. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is function over form, and you're not dealing with a beefy phone when you do put this mod on. It does increase the thickness probably times 2, but it might be a little bit more. It might be a smidgen more, a little hair bit thicker than the phone itself. But when you actually have the phone with the mod on there, for me, I'm used to having a case on a phone. And when I have this mod on there, it's no different than having a case on a phone for me in thickness. So it's still very, very usable. The only thing is that you're not protecting the sides here. That's, you don't get the benefit of a case in that aspect. But most cases, there are some cases that add battery life to it, but those tend to be even thicker than this. So I think this is a better way about that. So in addition to adding ×2 thickness, maybe a little bit more than ×2 thickness to the phone, you have a little bit more weight on the phone as well. But none of that is a deal breaker for me. I'll be happy to have a thicker phone and a slightly heavier phone for a phone that will last me several days on battery life. If you notice, on the previous mod, in the previous video, I had just the folio case on here, and the folio case was pretty much flush with the camera. Over here, you can tell that there's actually, the camera is lower than the mod, and you would expect that because the folio case really is just kind of for somewhat protection and looks, whereas this is, for function, and you're doubling the thickness of the phone here, so you're going to have an indent here where you didn't on the other. But that kind of gives you an idea of the thickness there. So that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, please post them down below. If you like what you see, please subscribe. And as always, if you want to help out this channel, you can thumbs up the video, you can share the video on your favorite social media, or you could actually join my Patreon, all of which is greatly appreciated. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.